Whenever I hear Klaus Schwab and his Davos death cult friends openly outline their goals for world domination, I always ask myself, are we really going to let another power-hungry German walk us into global conflagration? For a while, I thought our Western allies had experienced enough loss and murder from the first two world wars to come to an unofficial understanding that unchecked German megalomania always results in negative consequences for everyone. The reality is that it is much simpler to invade the nation of your enemies with flowery declarations of peace, economic integration, and international cooperation, than it is to send jackboot shock troops marching past the Statue of Liberty and down the streets of New York.
And to ensure that people everywhere find peace and prosperity. Mr. President, the world is waiting to hear from you.
However, it goes without saying that the Americans, Canadians, and Britons would never stand by while German power brokers reshape the world to suit their needs. Or would they? Just take a listen to how Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau, and Joe Biden all recite the same Build Back Better boobery in unison, as if they were controlled by some evil hive mind.
Down the virus and deliver economic relief to workers and businesses, then we can start to build back better than before.
But it is undoubtedly an opportunity for us to work together and build back better.
Build back better.
As the world recovers, we have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
And building back better our economy and society.
We owe it to future generations to build back better and base our recovery on solid foundations.
The second plank in Build Back Better advances racial equity by mobilizing our infrastructure.
4 sets of priorities can guide the response to Build Back Better.
You know what Donald Trump will do with 4 more years? Blame, bully, and belittle. And you know what Joe Biden will do? Build back better.
It was unsettling at first to hear world leaders spout the same talking points from the World Economic Forum. It then made me feel sick. Now it merely makes them sound like World Economic Forum controlled, talking robots. Is it feasible that old Klaus has already lobotomized the supposed leaders of the West and implanted cutting-edge, Great Reset implants developed in Germany in place of their neurological CPUs?
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
We are in that situation right now, as the 1% of the 1% of the world celebrate their own grandeur in Davos and plan the future of humanity without even making the pretense of asking for permission from humanity. To his spectre-like cabal in Switzerland, Schwab declared, the future is not just happening. We, a strong community like you here in this room, are building the future. Good German, Klaus and his merry gang of world gentry have made the decision to rule the earth, and they are so sure of their success that they no longer bother to put on a front.
Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, the future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room.
Klaus Schwab, the founder of the WEF, is particularly upfront and even proud of his ability to shape and influence world politics.
I created the community of global shapers as a means, as a force to shape our common future.
And of course, their Global Young Leaders program is a grooming ground so that when they ultimately infiltrate cabinets,
we penetrate the cabinets.
They will likely tend to govern a certain way.
Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
The names and the countries he mentioned ended up being some of the most dystopian and authoritative during this pandemic.
Names like Ms. Merkel, Vladimir Putin and so on.
Other names? Jacinda Ardern, Sebastian Kurz, Mauricio Macri, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Ma, Gavin Newsom, Stéphane Bancel, Chelsea Clinton, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Leana Wen, Alexander and Jonathan Soros, George Soros' sons, and several of the Rothschilds. And of course,
Now, who could represent such a world better than you, Prime Minister?
The world is now anxiously waiting to find out what Kaiser Klaus and his new nobles have in store for us. Will strict population control, mandatory injection programs, and economic lockdowns re-emerge due to another paralyzing wave of viral pandemics? Will a massive cyber attack shut down the internet for billions of people and bring about global darkness? Will Green New Steel socialism lead to increased levels of world poverty, starvation, and huge population extinctions? The WEF has already manipulated the situation and is prepared to benefit off the world's suffering, regardless of what happens next. In a different time, participants in the World Economic Forum would be arrested and tried for endangering the safety and security of independent states. Heck, if people truly comprehended the WEF as a global Marxist totalitarian engine of evil, they may forego the trials and proceed directly to the punishment. But regular people all around the world have a genuine problem when so many of today's politicians have already given their country-states keys to the aspiring tyrants at Davos. Kaiser Klaus is open about his grand strategy to annihilate national self-determination. It only requires 2 steps. By inviting them to join the WEF club, you first seize the leadership positions in politics and business. Then, by any means necessary, you educate these world leaders to collaborate, instead of speaking for the national people they purport to represent. That, in my opinion, qualifies as a double act in sabotage for every WEF participant devoted to undermining national interests in favor of those of Klaus's Fourth Reich. No one can be trusted to serve their country and Schwab's global coalition of the wicked at the same time, since no one can serve 2 masters. For those who legitimately object to a group of unelected oligarchs influencing global events for their own ends, there is a significant lesson to be learned from this. When the wealthy and powerful extol international cooperation, they nearly invariably mean to take advantage of the common people. The key to limiting power and ensuring equal opportunity is fierce competition, not cooperation. Since World War II, the West has been brainwashed into believing the opposite myth, that competition results in tragedy and that the only way to achieve lasting peace is by coercion. Racism and nationalism are conflated.
The following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."
The founding fathers were racist, misogynist, fascist political party, radicals on the far right, anti-Semitic, xenophobic, transphobic, Uncle Tom's white supremacist, domestic terrorist, neo-Nazi organizer, Nazis. You are an anti-vaxxer, racist.
Patriotism is mocked as yet another popular civic drug. Byzantine local rules and international trade agreements that shield multinational monopolies at the expense of up-and-coming startups without the wherewithal to surpass corporations with significant political weight have long since buried free markets. The bureaucratic army of Washington, D.C., cannot represent the interests of American voters when it serves the interests of foreign governments, multinational corporate boards, international financial heavyweights, and Western military alliances rather than those of American workers competing with Chinese slave labor and oppressively regulated American factories competing with scarcely regulated foreign enterprises. An ever smaller set of global elites gain greater influence over everyone else as Biden grants the Chinese-aligned World Health Organization authority over Americans' health and grants the United Nations control over Americans' future usage of fossil fuels. While doing so, they exalt their actions as a triumph for a rules-based international order. A rules-based international order is actually opposed to American liberty and independence. It weakens the influence and freedom of regular Americans while strengthening the technocratic coalition of self-proclaimed experts. It disregards the democratic interests of all Americans and forces the over 1%'s agenda on the rest of us. In favor of international agreements, American law is sacrificed. Free speech is replaced by speech that has been sanctioned by the government. It undermines privacy while defending widespread surveillance. It gives central banks' money printing schemes the power to manage Americans' personal wealth instead of them. It gives international governing organizations more sway than the legal authority of local governments. While weakening safeguards for individual liberties, it strengthens the invasive reach of an unelected bureaucracy. In other words, it revives a feudal system where a few powerful lords and ladies rule over a region without borders while the remaining serfs are required to own nothing and be happy or else. When elites work together, they shiv everyone else while taking what they can and regulating what they can't. That sums up the World Economic Forum.